I don't want a sport where we're looking at teams talking about who we think is the best when we have numbers that say 8-0, when we have numbers that say 9-0. And we could keep going about this, and we
The
probably will.
Oklahoma, well, let's do it now, man. Like the
Okay.
Oklahoma thing was the most shocking part of this because yes,
Okay.
Oklahoma has looked up and down offense this year, but they've won all the games, which to your point is the most important thing, right? They win the games. Yes, the Kansas game was not pretty at times. The Texas game was not pretty. TCU and Tech were fine. Kansas State, it was the margin was closer in the game. West Virginia, they've had close games, okay? But to your point, in the end, winning is the most important thing, and they've won all their games. Caleb Williams has entered the offense. The offense has been better, and now for them at least, they will have opportunities to prove the committee right or wrong. They're at Baylor. They're at Oklahoma State. They have Iowa State sandwiched in between those two at home. So they'll get a chance to prove their worth, but I was very surprised. I think they're a better team than Michigan, who's ranked ahead of them. Like, I just think they would beat Michigan in a neutral field by a touchdown.
I don't know what else would need to happen because Michigan hadn't beaten anybody that anybody respects, right? And the one team that they played that we all said was good, they lost to. They gave up a 16-point lead to Michigan State, right? And got beat by 4. And then there's this Minnesota angle to it that I don't get. I have this segment on the number 1 ranked show called Money in the Bag where I basically make fun of these teams that play these pay games who get beat. So you are paying for this loss that you took.
I love it. I love when you do that. It's fantastic.
And Bowling Green, right, beat Minnesota, among other things. But to the Oklahoma point, there's really one factor that really bothers me about all of this. Jeff, there's one 9-0 team in all of college football. Just one. And you rank them number 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not even talking about Wake Forest, who I also think has a bone to pick with everybody here because all they're doing is beating people.
Man, they skewered them on the show tonight, though. They were like, "Look, they're terrible."
And yet, they would say we walk in and not have these preconceived notions when we absolutely do. I give you this point: there are 2 teams ranked in the top 25 who have beaten Clemson. One of them is Georgia, 10-3. Another one is Pittsburgh, who beat them by 10. And yet and still, we are looking at Pittsburgh and saying that's a better football team than, say, UTSA, right? Or anybody else we might think of. I find it wild that people would say with a straight face that they are not walking into this thing, A, counting who the coaches are, B, what the brands are, and C, what they have done in recent history. Because Clemson, taking an L to you, seems to still matter.
Well, of course. Look, but it's humans doing this, right? So that's part of the process. If this was the BCS, and I actually think the BCS was, looking back on it, was probably a fine system. But this is, part of the human element is yes, you're going to typically weigh what you've seen in the past to what like for Clemson, right? Like you're going to weigh kind of what they've been in the past and weigh those wins and losses for Pittsburgh based on that. I think that's just the human part of this. You hope that with 13 committee members, they sort that out. But in the end, there's always going to be a bias. That's what you've said forever. Expanding the playoff is a way to take that bias out, right? Because you're guaranteed that if you go to your version, 16 teams, right, the 10 conference winners are in. So there's no bias there, right? Now, of course, where they're ranked is maybe a bias, but you win your conference, you're in. And then we can argue about the other 6 teams afterwards. But that takes all the bias, at least for the conference winners, out of the discussion.
Jeff, I'm going to level with you on something here in just a minute, but they're new, they're hot, they're crispy. They're the Wendy's new hot and crispy fries. I had them. I ate them too fast. It was a great experience, though. I really love the fries. I really love what they've been doing with them. And as you know, this recap is presented by Wendy's. Jeff, the thing that I can't stand about the sport that I love, that you love, that the folks listening love, is I feel that there are people who want to assert control over this sport in ways that I do not think are healthy. And the playoff ranking is one such way. The reason that I am a proponent of the 16-team playoff as opposed to 12, right, or 8 or 6, is because everybody gets in that should get in. It is 10 automatic qualifiers because we have 10 FBS conferences, and then your committee can pick the 6 at-large teams and even seed them. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with you looking at me dead in the eye and telling me who you think is better than someone else when all those other people have done is win. Do you think that there are folks that have too much control over who gets into a playoff? Let's call it a P5 invitational because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Then don't.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the committee members have power over who gets in. Of course, yeah. There's power there, and obviously there is a lean towards the more traditional winning powers that travel really well. That the ratings. I mean, the ratings for Michigan State were like through the roof. I think it was like 10 million people watched that game. I think highest of the year so far. So yeah, of course they're going to cater toward those teams. Like again, I'm not as surprised that humans have made like
is it fair to say you're more realistic about this than I am? I'm more optimistic about this.
You're way more optimistic about it. I'm just more real. I'm just kind of more real about like and that's what shocked me about Oregon because like they've never given love to the Pac-12 like this. Like I'm shocked by it because again Oregon had a bad loss to Stanford. They played some closer games that were closer than they should have been. I mean, everybody should schedule Ohio State is what you're telling me in the Pac-12, right? Everybody should put Ohio State on their schedule. I would say that. I mean, if we had played Ohio, and we were 8-0, we'd be in the top 7. I mean, like it wouldn't matter. But yeah, like I am kind of a realist with this. And I've said this for a while, and it pisses people off that go to group of 5 schools and root for them. But look, when I went to Oregon in 2004, I didn't think about winning a championship. Like I thought about winning the Pac-12 conference or Pac-10 at that time, and USC was really good, so I don't even know if that was an option. And then go to the Rose Bowl. Like that was to me a successful season. I'm not sure someone going to Cincinnati as a recruit now it might be different, but 2 years ago saying to themselves, I'm going there to win a championship, right? Like I'm going there, and I just feel like everyone has this idealistic idea of who can win a championship, and really it's like 3 teams every year, and we've gone away from just saying like, okay, you went 10-2, 11-1. You had a great season. Like that's okay to be proud of a season where you had a great record and just didn't make a playoff or didn't win a playoff game. Like we've gone so far in one direction where the only acceptable way to judge a season is by playoff wins and losses. I just think that's ludicrous because the players don't feel that way. The coaches don't feel that way, but fans and media, and we're part of the media, obviously, have made it to where it's only good if you win a playoff game or make the playoff. When Cincinnati might not make the playoff, they might go 13-0. That's a heck of a season, man. Like wow. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that we've gone in a direction where, like, again, it's only the playoff or bust when I think plenty of teams have great seasons that really have no real chance to ever make a playoff. They should be really happy about their seasons.
And this is where I think you and I have a schism, and I'm using that term loosely, but
I know. Yeah.
I didn't grow up thinking, hey, it's great to play at a Rose Bowl. I didn't grow up thinking it's great to play at a Sugar Bowl. I mean, we're not that much different in age.
But your team though you grew up with was winning a lot more than my team.
Well, but I also went to the University of Tulsa for undergrad, right? And I was fortunate enough to play to go there when TU was good. But there are 2 things that I would point to. One is on the off chance that I'm having a magic year, like Central Florida in 2017. I want to see how far that can go. I want you to put somebody in front of me that beat me. Until that happens, I'm going to keep saying, hey, that was our 1 year where we were greater than the sum of our parts. And number 2, and I think you know this and know my story, and I feel comfortable saying this. I'm a group of 5 team. All I asked for was a shot. And I got one. And I'm doing my doggonest not to mess it up and to see how far this goes. But I look at Cincinnati, and I see a program that has been building. And I see a program that has done everything in their power. Same thing I did with Central Florida with Scott Frost and them, and so forth, so on. Because we're always going to have this. Like I could point to Boise State a number of times over the last 2 decades has been in that position. Or Utah when they beat Alabama in 2008 to finish undefeated, but we're still a G5 school. I want to see those Magic teams come through because when we see the tournament in March, our favorite part is the upset. And when we finally saw a 16 upset of 1, shout out UMBC, we all had a good time, right? And I think that we could have that in college football. That's what I'm rooting for. I'm not to say that they're not having a good season or to play in a Rose Bowl is anything but. I do believe, though, we could have a system in place where everybody has a chance, and that makes the playoff the national championship that much more fun and that much more inclusive, right? And that's really what this is about. It is about broadening the number of people that care. Because if you're UTSA, you're going, why do I watch college football at all as a fan? Because I'm just going to get irritated by how people treat my team, though my team has been great. Is that fair or is that unfair?
Yeah, no. I mean, look, UTSA, for example, is going to be fired up about it, but they're also going to be fired up to keep winning now, right?
Sure. Yes.
I'm not saying they wouldn't be otherwise if they were ranked 17th, but it's like, okay, well, now we got to keep playing, right? And, coaches are going to say the same thing they always say, right? We're going to be 1-0 this week, and we're not worried about it. Of course, they look at it. But again, like the reward for UTSA, for example, I don't even know what bowl game they would qualify for. But obviously the reward in your system and maybe in the new playoff system would be a playoff game. Great. But like, again, if they go 12-0, 13-0, they play, again, they would be in – if Cincinnati makes the playoff, they take the next best New Year's Six Bowl slot, I guess, for Group of Five. I don't know. But that's a heck of a season. Like, why is it a bad season?
It's not.
If they finish 21st in the top 25 – 12-0, let's say, and they win a bowl game, or they play in a bowl game against a great Power 5 tradition. Like that to me is not a bad thing for them. And we frame it as like it's a bad thing.
No, it's not, right? And let's be clear about that. It's not, but it is a representation of what we don't talk about, which is we all believe playing football is a meritocracy. That if you win, people will treat you like winners. That's what we do, right?
Yes.
And college football is the one place where that is not true. It's not true. It's not. And that's what I'm up against.
And it might be, I mean, they're meeting this week to maybe make adjustments to the playoffs. And this might be a moot conversation next year. I think that if they do that, it's going to happen pretty quickly. Like it has to happen
next year,
sooner than later. I don't know next year, 'cause I don't know about the TV deals, but like soon, like ASAP needs to happen. It just said the same thing, but yeah, it needs to happen soon. Put it like that.
No, and I'm completely for that. I'm going to be interested to see what these rankings look like next week. Obviously, my Oklahoma Sooners are on a bye, but UTSA gets El Paso to see if they can't keep this thing going on. Cincinnati's going to hope that Houston keeps doing their thing and that SMU still got the one loss. I mean, there's a lot to play for here, and I expect these rankings to move and shake, but I'm going to leave you with this. There's only been one team since the playoff was first formed to run the table from number one at the initial rankings release to national champion, and that was last year, 2020 Alabama. Since then, we've seen more number two teams win the championship at the initial than not, and guess who's number two right now? Alabama. Could be just the same that it's always been.